In this video, you will get a complete step-by-step walkthrough on how to create your Express Entry profile effectively so you can prepare yourself for Canadian permanent residency. For people who already know me, this is a refresher video of the previous video I created last year on how to create the Express Entry profile. In my last video, I received a lot of comments from people around the world asking very specific questions, and sometimes they were repetitive. So in this video, my aim is to cover all those answers in detail. So if you want to do it the right way, you are at the right place. So let's get started. In this video, I will be covering different aspects of life for people who are in Canada, came as a student, or people who are on their spouse open work permit, and people who are not in Canada but still want to apply for their permanent residency. I will be covering all those topics as a part of this walkthrough. The first step to create your Express Entry profile is to create your GC Key account. But I'm not going to go through that process, so please sign up for your GC Key account. I'm putting the link in the description, and we'll continue from the main step once you create this account. So first of all, I will click on apply to come to Canada, and then here I will choose Express Entry, and then here which province or territory you are most interested in. So for this question, it does not really mean where you are currently situated if you are already in Canada. If you are in Canada or outside Canada, it mostly just wants to know which province do you ideally want to settle in. Mostly people choose to be in the province they are already living in if they are already in Canada. Just for the reference, people who are not in Canada, you can choose any province. This is not really going to make any difference on your selection or that you have to settle in that province only. You can choose whatever you feel like it for now. Okay. The next is the language test results. Okay. Which language test did you take for your first official language? So in this case, you can either take IELTS, you can take CELPIP, you can take TEF or TCF if you are choosing to give French as an examination. You can also use Pearson now, which was not there before. Okay, so let's say I'm doing IELTS for now, and we'll continue with that. The next is the date when you took the test, so enter that. The next is the score of your test, which you will find in your report. Next is if you have taken any another language test. So let's say if you have taken English as the first language test, and if you have also tried French, then you can use that. You can provide that yes, you have taken it. If you have not, then you can just say none. Alright, so for now, just for the simplicity, I'm not going to mention anything here. I'm just going to put it none. But you cannot take two official English language tests and expect to get points from it. Okay, you have to give English and French two different tests if you are using the second official language as well. So we'll continue with that. In last 3 years, how many years of skilled work experience do you have in Canada? Now, I know this question seems a little difficult for people who have not been to Canada before. For people who already are in Canada, you can choose if you have already worked in Canada for more than 1 year or not. This will basically qualify you for CEC, which is Canadian Experience Class. Alright, so let's say I have worked in Canada for more than 1 year, and you'll have to choose the tier category. For people who don't know anything about the NOC code and tier category, please reach out to me and I'll help you understand what they mean and how you can utilize it for the Express Entry. But for people who already know and can understand what their job role is and what tier category they belong to, please select the tier category of your job. Okay, so now that basically gives us the result which says that yes, I am eligible, and there is a two-step process for the Express Entry. The first one is to create the profile, review the profile, and submit the profile, and second is after I submit, I see a page which will show me the next steps of the profile, which means it will show me what scores I'm getting, whether I'm eligible or not, and so on. So we'll continue with the step one. This is some of your personal information which you'll have to go through as a part of creating the Express Entry profile. Okay, so we'll create the profile and understand if we are eligible. So what's your last name? Enter your last name, enter your first name. This is where some of the people are getting confused who only have the first name. They don't have any last name, and trust me, that's reality. A lot of people I talk to, I have seen that they don't have a last name. So in that case, as per IRCC, if you do not have the family name, then write the given name in the surname section and leave the given name field blank, but do not enter not applicable, star, or any. So here I suggest people that even though you are seeing that there is a first name which is required, I want you to not enter anything in the first name and it will let you go. Yes, it's surprising. Even I tried it and it worked. Before I was using the first name and last name, but not anymore. And because it would also exist in my work permit and my study permit, or if there are any other permits or not, if you are not in Canada, you can still do the affidavit and create a last name if possible. If you're already in Canada and some of your documents only have the first name, even your passport, then you can go with this approach, alright? But for simplicity, I'll just keep it normal. Enter all the other related information. What's your marital status? If you are married, there will be some additional questions being asked to add your spouse as well. But for now, I'm just keeping the application simple, so I'm just going to say I'm single. Okay, so that brings us to the candidate's express entry creation profile page. Here we have personal details, contact details, study and languages, application details, representative and work history. To give a brief about all these, personal details is pretty much all your personal information. Contact details would be very simple and short. Application details will also be short. Representative is pretty much we don't need it. Study and languages and work history will be the most important sections, and that's where I'll be covering most of my time. Okay, now let's go to the personal details section. As you can see, the first and last name is already grayed out, so we cannot edit it. If you want to edit the personal details, you will have to go on start again. Pretty much I will save and exit here, and then I'll click on modify family information. This is where I can change my name if I have entered it and I don't know where to go back to. Alright, so I'll just cancel this for now, and then we'll go into the personal details. Going next, as you can see, all the related information are already filled up. We'll enter the country, let's say India. Now the ID or document related information. Okay, so I'm expecting that people who are watching the video will at least have their passport created. If you are not in Canada, if you're already in Canada, then of course you have it already created. So let's just select that yes, you have the ID, and you'll just have to provide the number of the ID and the country, issue date and expiry date. As soon as you add it, all these section will go blank and you will have the information stored here in the boxes. Now you see, if you think you made any mistake, you can always modify them by clicking here and update the entries. Alright, we'll go next now. Immigration history and citizenship. This is an important section because a lot of people in the past were making mistakes here. So let me try to explain a little bit better this time. Has Raj Patel applied to IRCC before? If you are already in Canada on any status, whether it was your visitor's visa, whether it was your study permit, your work permit, any status, whether you are on a closed work permit or an open work permit, you would have applied to IRCC at some point of time. If you have not applied with IRCC, you are completely outside Canada, never came to Canada, then you can just say no and get done with it. But for most people out here, you will say yes. So now the next question is, have you applied for express entry before? A lot of people gets confused here. Applying for express entry does not mean creating the profile. Okay, whether you say yes or no, it's not going to make any difference. Let's say if you created your express entry profile and it immediately became ineligible due to any of your technical mistakes, okay, then you do not need to say yes and enter the file number here and sort of like make things complicated. Okay, you can just say no here because you are never getting any step further from that point. Okay, that is completely ineligible. That is done. That was your technical mistake. You can create n number of your express entry profiles and it would not harm your application. I'm repeating this once again. You are not blocked from creating your express entry profile again. If you are getting ineligible, please try it once again with the right entries. Probably you will make it through. Okay, and if you still need help there, please feel free to reach out to me. I have created appointments specifically for those kind of profiles where they make mistakes and it comes as ineligible, and I help them on call to correct those mistakes if possible and help them create the express entry profile. So feel free to try that. But yeah, coming back to the point, for most people, let's say you created your express entry profile after 1 year, your scores expired, or due to any other reason your profile became ineligible, then you can use this. But this is not for every single time something happened, you are just in the initial phase creating the profile and still not getting it through. Just say no here and get done with it. Don't try to say yes every single time trying to go to the express entry file number, entering it. Don't do that. UCI, since last many years Canada has added this UCI into their applications. If you have applied for any permits or any visas, you most likely have the UCI number attached to you. So no matter how many applications you create, you'll always get a UCI which will interlink all your profiles. Okay, so UCI for people, let's say, who are on their study permit or work permit, you literally just have to open it and then you will find the UCI number somewhere here. Okay, same thing if you have a passport stamp for visitor's visa, most likely if the stamp looks something like this, then the UCI UCI will be somewhere here. Alright, so I hope you are able to find the UCI number through that. If you still have questions, always go to the question mark and then you will be able to see more details around that. The UCI number would be 8 or 10 digit number which you can find in any legal documents. Selecting the country of citizenship and the country of residence. So let's say I'm currently in Canada, but if you are not in Canada, then please choose accordingly. And if you make any mistakes in your profile, you will get this kind of error message. So please make sure to enter all the fields correctly before continuing. Here in this case, the postal code needs to have a space in it. Okay. Little bit about the family information here. How many family members does Raj Patel have? So in this case, if you are single right now, your parents does not count as your family member. Only your spouse, partner, or any dependent children and their dependent children are counted as your family members. So in this case, let's say if you're single, you can just select one person because it includes you. If you are with your spouse, you can select two and so on and so forth. So I'm just going to select one for the sake of simplicity. How much money are you going to bring to Canada to support yourself and family? Now this is a very interesting question because a lot of people make mistakes here and they don't know what they're doing. There are two different pathways as I have already told. First one is CEC, which is Canadian Experience Class, for which you do not need to show any funds. It is funds exempted because you are already working in Canada, most likely. If you're eligible for FSW, that's where the funds are required. So when they're asking this particular question, if you want to make yourself FSW eligible, then enter the funds. The minimum amount of funds would be mentioned in the table in this particular link. And when you will scroll down, you will see the current number. This number is as of 2024, but this number keeps changing every year depending on the inflation. So for now, it's 14,690, but next year, or probably if you're watching this video in future, this number can change. Okay, so coming back to here to this point, if let's say you are already working in Canada and you are eligible for Canadian Experience Class, which means you already have a 1 year of experience in Canada, you can technically just say 0 and go with it. When you will receive an ITA, you will not be asked to provide any financial proofs, and that is reality. A lot of people make that mistake, they don't know, but you can actually go with 0. The downside of this is that you will not be eligible for the federal skilled worker stream. Okay, but if you are not in Canada, then of course you will have to show the funds, and in that case you will have to meet the minimum depending on your family size. You'll have to enter the number. So I cannot enter 5,000 and expect myself to meet the FSW criteria. I have to at least put, let's say, $15,000 in this case for myself. Okay, so I'll just say next. Now they need to know everything about my family members, relatives who are a citizen or a permanent resident of Canada. The family members includes aunt or uncle, daughter or son, granddaughter, grandmother, grandfather, your mother, your niece, your nephews, your sisters, your spouse, anyone counts. If you do not have any relatives in Canada, then you can just say no. If you have a relative in Canada, even though they recently got their permanent residence, you have to enter their name here because this is the time you are creating the profile and you have to understand how important it is to be truthful. So enter all the information about where they're living, where they are, and so on. As you can see, this section is for gaining points for your relatives in Canada. Okay, if it's your blood relative, if they are in Canada, you get additional points. This profile is very simple. You do not need to upload any documents, but you have to declare whether you have any relatives in Canada or not. Alright, so for the simplicity, I'm just going to say no and we'll save and exit. So as you can see, the personal details section is completed, and now we'll go to the contact details. It's very simple, so I'm not going to spend more time here. The next section is study and languages. Now before we continue, if you are in your immigration journey in Canada and outside Canada as well, but you want to settle in Canada at some point of time, I make many of these kind of videos, so please consider subscribing. Let's continue. Now, if you are applying from anywhere in the world and if you have not finished a high school degree, then you are technically not eligible for express entry at all. Okay, so I'm expecting that anyone who is watching this video, they have at least completed their high school degree, and you have to say yes in this case. Okay, now the field of study, it's more like a program of your studies. So here it might be possible that you are not able to find the exact match. There might be close match to what you are studying. Okay, so in this case, choose the closest match you can find. If you cannot find anything, you can always select other. Okay, and it's not going to harm you in any ways. It's not going to create any confusions. Feel free to use others if you cannot find anything, but I would highly recommend to choose a field of studies if it's matching your profile. Okay, if you are currently studying studying this program, you can say yes. If you're not currently studying this program, a new section will open to enter the due date, which you can enter, and the academic years. So standing at the end of your study. So if it's a good standing but you did not receive any diploma or degree, it probably does not give you any points, but it should ideally be certificate or diploma or a degree awarded in order to count and get you the points. All right. If I did not study in Canada, then just enter the name of the country where you studied and provide the information relatively. For the simplicity, I'm just going to put Canada here. Okay, level of education. Now in the level of education, there are multiple options for you to choose for people who have done their postgraduate diploma. Okay, you might be thinking that yes, it is higher than bachelor's. I've done it after bachelor's. There was a requirement to complete bachelor's and then do the postgraduate diploma. It is still a 2-year program at a college or a trade school. Okay, even if it's a university, it's a 2-year program. Only if you have done bachelor's, you can select bachelor's. If it's a 3-year program, even at a college, you select this. And master's is completely different than postgraduate diploma, so do not get confused between master's and postgraduate diploma. All right, for the people who have a professional degree for which a license is needed to practice, for example physiotherapist, nurses, and even dentist, those people can select master's or professional degree, this option, even though they have completed their bachelor's, because they get more points. So I'll just select bachelor's here in this case, just for the simplicity. A Canadian degree or diploma awarded, so going to say yes. And then it's going to ask me more questions. I'm going to go through the another section for foreign education as well to cover that. So please wait. It will come as we go through the video. Okay. Was a degree, diploma or certificate from the public secondary institution? Most of the time, yes, unless you studied from a private school, then that program probably is not eligible. Okay. So in most cases, it would be yes. What's the DLI number of the institution? For people who are still not sure about the DLI number, you can always find it from the website. Okay, so let's say I go to the website. So as you can see, even for the DLI numbers, their DLI numbers could be different for different campuses as well. So make sure that you choose the right campus, choose the right DLI number and enter it accordingly. For my case in the reference, I'm just going to use this. Was more than half the study program English or French as a second language courses? Which means if you studied in a different language and English or French were used as a second language for the part of the studies which you did, all the courses in Canada, you'll have to say no here, because if you studied English as a second language, most likely this education itself is not eligible. Okay, and you won't get any points for this. So make sure to say no here. It's a rhetorical question, okay, where ideally we expect the answers to be yes for everything, but in this case the answer has to be no. Now, did Raj Patel study in Canada based on an award that require you to go back to your home country? Now this award or scholarships, this is mostly designed for people who want to gain skills and knowledge in Canada and then go back, help their home country. If you do that, most likely you are not eligible to apply for permanent residence. If you need more information, you can always click on the question mark. Okay, this includes a lot of different scholarships, but for most people and most cases, the answer would be no. Okay, now, was more than 50% of the study of this course was done in person? There was a time from 2020 March to 2022 August, during which if you studied, because of the COVID, there was an exception given to the people that they do not need to meet the in-person learning criteria. But after that, if you are coming, then you will have to select yes, because you have to go in person in order for making this program or the study eligible for the express entry. If and only if you were studying from a time period from March 2020 to August 2022, you are exempted to select no and still be eligible. So the system will not give you any penalty points if you are selecting no, because that is the true information. Okay, if you did not go to the class, if you studied virtually because of this time frame, then select no, because otherwise it will be wrong information. So I'll say yes for now. Did Raj Patel study in Canada for at least 8 months, which is pretty much at least that 1-year course? If you have taken that, then you have to say yes. Most of the courses will be, so I'm just going to say yes in this case. Studied full time for 8 months, I'm going to say yes again for this case as well, and we'll save and add. So as you can see, once you save and add, the information comes into this boxes, okay, and it will not show you everything, but it is stored. You can always click on modify and and enter that information once again or change that information once again. Okay, so for now I'll just click on save and add. Now just to give you an example of the foreign degree as well, I'm going to create another education which is not in Canada but it is outside Canada for the people who are applying for express entry from outside Canada or who have an outside Canada education or study. Okay, so here I'm just going to select an education, and let's say this time it's not in Canada, it's probably, let's say, in India. Now here again it will ask you the question, did you get a Canadian diploma or degree? Because that's where the questions change. Okay, so if I say yes, again it's going to expect that I am going to provide more information about that Canadian institution, but in this case the answer is no. Okay, so it's going to ask me different question. It's going to ask me information about the education credential evaluation. Now for people who don't know, education credential assessment is needed if your degree is from outside Canada, and in this case you will have to go through the evaluation agencies. Like for example, there is this agency called WES, which is World Education Services. If you don't know about it, I have created an entire video on how to evaluate your document using WES. Okay, so you can find it somewhere up there. So use that to evaluate your document. If it's bachelor's, if it's master's, whatever it is, they will help you evaluate and make it Canadian equivalent, and then you can use it to get points in the express entry. You cannot start creating the express entry before getting an ECA done, because it is going to ask you information about it as well. So let's say I say yes, I have done it. Then it's going to ask me information. If I say no, I have not done it, then it's going to let me go, but it is not going to give me points for this particular education. Okay, so for people who are outside Canada, make sure that you do your ECA before creating the profile, so you have the information ready to enter. Now here in the ECA as well, there are certain medical degrees for which the usual ECS does not work. For example, Medical Council of Canada is something you need, or something else. For architecture, there is Canadian Architectural Certification Board, which you will have to go through. So WES will not always work for everyone, but for most of the degrees, WES will work. I'm just selecting WES for simplicity, but there are other agencies as well who provide the equivalency report. So in case if you are not happy or for any reason if WES is slow for you, you can always go for others, which is the Comparative Education Services from UFT. There is the ICAP, which is the International Credential Assessment Services of Canada, and there is ICAS, which is International Credential Evaluation Services. There is International Qualification Assessment Services. I have broken down all the information about all these alternatives to WES in this video, so please go take a look at them if you haven't done this, and then once you have the document ready, you can come back. All right, but for now, for simplicity, I'm just going to select WES here. If you have a certificate number, and if it's done for the immigration, ideally the number would end with IMM, so make sure to enter that number here. All right, the level of education shown in the ECA report. Now the reason why they are asking for this particular question is that it is highly possible that you did your bachelor's back home in your home country, but it is not qualifying as a bachelor's degree, but probably just a 2-year program at a university or college. Okay, it is possible that you did your master's degree, but it is qualifying as a bachelor's degree only, because it does not include the courses for whatever reason. Then you will have to select the information given in your ECA report. It does not really matter what you studied, but whatever is shown in your ECA report would be available to claim the points. So I'll just save in this case, and here I have shown the example of 2 different types of education which you can refer. But if you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments, or you can always reach out to me and I'll be happy to help you out. Now let's go to the next section, which is the official languages. So I'll just select English in this case. If you can communicate in both, if you're given examinations in both, then you can select both, but for most people it will be just English. So I'm just selecting here this thing, and I have already provided some information about the language test, so I'm just going to use that and we'll continue with the information. If you have given IELTS, you know that most of the time your results will be available the next day if you have given the computer based. If you are giving the paper based examination, then it takes somewhere around 12 to 13 business days to get your test results, so the date might differ, and please use the dates accordingly. A lot of people have the question here, which date is being used to check the expiry of my language test. Generally, it's the date of the test results, but I would highly suggest to give another language test and rely on the date of the test instead of the test results. That way, in case if in future government changes the rules, you are not stuck or your profile does not go into the ineligibility and you can still continue. All right. And we'll just provide the certification number. For the language test, you will be able to find the certification. If you, for example, for IELTS, you will be able to find the language test report form number. If you open the reports, it's somewhere here. So use that number, paste it here, and it's all good. If you're given the French language skills, you can say yes and provide more information about that test. If you have not, then you can just say no. For the sake of simplicity, I'm just going to say no. We'll save and exit on this one. So as you can see, I've completed 3 things. Now, if you're enjoying this video so far, I would really appreciate if you could like this video, as it will help others creating their Express Entry profile as well. Now, I'm going to show you a little bit of a technical detail. Let's say if I'm working on something and if I miss a simple drop down, and if I save and exit thinking that it is completed, it will show in progress. If any of these sections are showing in progress, that means it's not completed, and you have to go to the form and find out which section is not completed. As you can see, a tick shows that it is completed. If it's not completed, it will show something like this, a progress icon. So you'll have to go find what is missed and complete that section and then save and exit to make sure that it is completed. Next is the application details. We'll go through that. Here, for people who are not in Canada, this seems like an important question where you would consider living in. So don't try to just select one province. As you know that the IRCC, the points and everything is crazy these days. You don't want to rely on just one province unless you have a very strong reason for doing that. I would suggest just to select all the provinces. For people who are in Canada, I would still suggest to select all provinces. And here is my argument for this. I believe that if you give all provinces, that means your profile for the Express Entry, it goes to the database of all the provinces. So let's say if you are living in Ontario and if Nova Scotia wants candidates like yourself, then they would give you an interest letter through which you can apply for their PNP program and eventually settle in Nova Scotia. But let's say you did not select Nova Scotia, you did not select all provinces, you will never appear in their database and you will completely lose that opportunity of getting that invite. It does not harm you in any ways, because if Nova Scotia, let's say, invites you, it is your choice completely to either apply for that PNP program or not. If you let it go, you can just let it go. It does not harm you in any ways. It's your choice, but let the choice come to you. Do not just reject the choice before it presents itself. All right, so I would highly recommend to select all the provinces here and choose once you have the choices in your hand, because I've seen a lot of people missing out on opportunities, especially in 2023 2024 for a lot of PNP programs, when they were really confident that they will get through the Express Entry, but they couldn't. And there is one another question which lies in this particular section, so I want to cover that one as well. A lot of people say that, hey, I received an invite for PNP from Ontario, a notification of interest, for example. I did not select it, I did not go through it, I did not apply for it, it was expired in 45 days. And the next time when they released a draw for the same thing, for notification of interest, I did not get it. Why? What happened? Like, why my friends got it, I did not get it? That's because they'll only send one invite per province. Okay, if let's say Nova Scotia invited you, you did not follow through, they are not going to invite you again. You are removed from their database. Now, how to do that again, how to make yourself eligible again for these provinces? Very simple. You just withdraw your profile, recreate the Express Entry profile with the information. You do not even have to say that yes, I have created Express Entry profile before. You can just completely start as a fresh profile. Again, select all the provinces and your profile will again appear in these province database, and again you will have that chance of getting invited for the next draw. You cannot say that you were eligible, you were not invited, so that's a mistake by province. No, they will not grant you an invitation. You will have to wait for the next draw, but that's the way you can once again be eligible to get invited. All right, so this was very specific questions for the people who really needed it, and we'll go to the next section here. Have you received a nomination certificate from a province or territory? Now, understand this. The nomination certificate of a province or territory could be of various different types. Okay, there are nomination or certificate for which they clearly mention in the certificate that you cannot use it for express entry. Those are for non-express entry permanent residents, and they are completely different streams. All the provinces have the non-express entry streams for which you do not get those additional 600 points which makes you eligible, and this is more for people who are in Canada. Okay, not for people who are outside Canada, because it's very hard to get nomination from outside Canada. So coming back to the point, for people who are in Canada and somehow you applied directly with the province and got a nomination certificate, you cannot say yes in your express entry profile. Okay, you have to select no, because that particular certificate clearly mentions that it is for non-express entry, and you, once you get that nomination certificate for non-express entry, you don't even have to create this profile. You are directly eligible to apply for your permanent residence. Why are you even creating this profile? Okay, so for people, for most cases, if you are in this particular section, most likely you don't have a nomination certificate yet, which you can change once you get an ITA, and this whole form will once again open up in front of you, and then you can change this information to yes and select the province for which you got the nomination certificate if you get a nomination certificate. Alright, we'll save and exit on this one, and you can see almost 4 out of 6 is completed. Next is the representative form, for which I'll just straight away select no, unless you are working with an immigration consultant, you are working with a lawyer, immigration lawyer, and they are doing it in behalf of you, then it would be yes, but in that case you are not even watching this video, so what's the point, right? So it's no for everyone. Let's get done with it. Okay, so now let's go to the work history section. Here the first question is, what's your primary occupation? It means that if you have an experience and you want to base the immigration application on this particular experience, this is your primary occupation. They will determine the eligibility for different federal programs. For example, if you have an experience as a nurse and you also have an experience as someone in the health informatics section, then in that case you will have to choose which one do you want to use as your primary occupation. Not necessarily it means that whatever is your current occupation is your primary occupation. Your primary occupation could also be that something you were doing few years ago, but just because you are not able to find that job right now, you are doing something else, that does not mean that your current job is primary occupation. So for those people who are thinking that it's a strict rule that if you are working as an administrative assistant but your actual job role is human resource professional, then in that case your primary occupation should be of that human resource professional and not of administrative assistant, unless you want to use your administrative assistant experience for as a primary occupation for your immigration application. Because as you know that these stuffs, as long as these are in tier 0, 1, 2 or 3, they pretty much get the same points for the number of years of experience you gain overall cumulative. But when you are being selected by a province, and if they are selecting or they are doing some targeted NOC based draws for in-demand occupation for other priority occupations, in that case they will select your occupation if you have used that as a primary occupation. Even if you have an experience but you haven't used that experience as a primary occupation and a province chooses that particular NOC code for nomination, you will unfortunately not be invited for that. So if you are searching for an answer for that, probably this is your answer. All right, so make sure to choose the primary occupation accordingly. Now the date on which you qualified for to practice this occupation, this is very important for certain occupations but not for everyone. All right, so I'll try to explain what it means and how it is important for certain occupations but not all. For most of the occupations, when you complete a certain level of degree or diploma, you are eligible to do the duties of that particular occupation. For example, administrative assistant, as I said, right? The employment requirement for that particular job role for administrative assistant would probably be that you have to have usually high school or a diploma completed, and as soon as you do that, you are technically eligible for that. So you can totally use the date when you graduated from your bachelor's or you graduated from your diploma. Whether it was here or back home really does not matter, that it has to be a Canadian education only, because remember, this express entry profile is for everyone, so anyone from all around the world can use this. So choose the date depending on when you think you are eligible. For certain occupations like trades, where you need to have certain qualification or license, and only then you can start working as a tradesperson for that particular job, you can use that particular date when you got the license to work on that trade. Okay, now that does not mean that you need a Canadian license to work on that trade. Let's say if you have an experience back home for being a plumber and you got a license to be a plumber back home, whether it was through completing your diploma, if that's the norm back home, whether it was through a specific license through your provincial, territorial, or state jurisdiction, then use that particular date of that certificate as the date on which you qualified for the practice. Same goes with the medical occupations as well, whether you are a dentist, nurse, doctors, physiotherapist, name it. You pretty much have to use the date on which you are qualified to do that job. Now, if you are doing that job here in Canada or you are doing it back home, really does not matter. The only thing here in Canada is that if you are working in Canada, you will need to have that license within that province to do the job. That does not mean that that was the first time you became qualified. Okay, if you are doing that same job back home, use that date. So for example, for this, let's say I graduated back in 2021 January, I'll probably just use that date when I qualified for bachelor's, maybe because for this particular job, bachelor's is the minimum qualification. Okay, so we'll continue. The certificate of qualification from a Canadian province or territory. If you have the certificate of qualification, you technically, at least as of now, you get 50 additional points in your express entry profile. So if you have that, say yes. If you don't have it, say no. For most of the people, they might not have it, but for people who have it, they also have sometimes confusion that, hey, I have a license to be a physiotherapist, why am I not getting it? I am a pharmacist, why am I not getting that additional 50 points you talked about? Because this is only a certificate of qualification, will only give you points. Okay, it only converts to points if it's in trades, and that too if it's in the specific range, which is 72, 73, 82, 83, 92, 93, and I think the other jobs were cook, butchers, and so on. Not for, let's say, nurses, pharmacists, physiotherapists, dentists. They do require it. So for this particular section, yes, because if you have a certificate of qualification, Canadian certificate of qualification, and you are working on that particular job in Canada, you will have to say that you have that qualification, and you'll have to use that certificate and the particular province and everything. You'll have to provide the details for the background check to prove that the work you are doing, it requires the license and you have the license, but not necessarily that you will get the points for it. All right, so don't do some misjudgment here. Not all the certificate of qualification gets the points. Only those mentioned by IRCC gets the points. But for the others, if you require to practice or to do the occupation, and if you have a Canadian experience, the only way you will be able to prove it is by entering that details here. And the date should be matching on the date you obtained the certificate, and the experience for that kind of job should only start since you got the certificate. If you need further information, please feel free to reach out to me. You can always book a call and I'll help you out. All right. The next section is, do you have a job offer in Canada? Now this is fairly common. A lot of new people still struggle with this question, so I'm going to go through in detail about this as well. If you have an LMIA job offer, okay, the job offer which is labor market impacted assessment created, only then you have a job offer in Canada. For rest of the job offers, just say no with this. Don't go into the trap of providing all the other details. That all the work history and work experience section goes into the work history part of it. Okay, this is specifically for LMIA. So if you have an LMIA related job, if it's a closed work permit, even if it's a exempted LMIA exempted job, but if it's a closed work permit in which your employer's name is on the work permit, then you pretty much just say yes in this case, and then we'll provide more information around this. So is this job offer a full-time continuous in 1 year? Yes, because if it's not, then it is not eligible. It should not be seasonal as well, so ideally you have to select yes in this case, and you'll have to provide the NOC code for it. So select whatever makes sense, and let's say I'll just put the same information here. Okay. How many employers made this offer? So ideally it would be one in most cases. Making sure that this particular job, because this could be an LMI exempted job offer, this should not be from an embassy, consulate or high commission in Canada, because you know that there are certain embassies there. All the countries have their embassy in Canada, so they can also offer you a job, okay, which is LMI exempted, and you can work here as a diplomat or something else, but that should not be the case. So if you say yes, you might not be eligible. And you will also have to make sure that the employer who have provided you with the job offer or provided you with an LMI supported job offer is not in the ineligible employers list. There is a list by Government of Canada they have created, and when you go there, you will probably be able to search your employer within that list. And if your employer is in that list, I would highly recommend to not go through with the job offer, because they are not eligible ideally, and they have done some mistakes, some scams or anything, because of which they have got some penalties and they have become ineligible, and that work permit might not really work out. Okay, they will not get you the express entry for sure. You cannot claim the points, but there could be other problems too. I would highly suggest not to go with such employers. I would say no for this case, and we'll say the name, contact address, province, city, street address. Okay, now the question is, was an LMIA issued for this job offer or not? Because as I told you that there could be job offers which are LMIA exempted. So just to keep it simple, I'm going to say yes. And when you do that, you will have to provide the LMIA number and whatnot, all the other information related to it, the issue date, the expiry date. And if you are currently working in Canada for this particular job, you'll have to say yes. If you are not working, you can say no, because there are cases where the LMIA is issued, the person can apply for express entry saying that yes, they have a job offer, the LMIA is issued, but the work permit is not here yet. So they cannot come to Canada, they cannot start working. So in this case, they will just say no. But if you are already working, you just say yes. And if you say yes, you are already working, then it's going to ask whether it's a valid work permit, which is an LMIA based closed work permit. Okay. If you have it, you say yes. Accordingly, you will have to choose. And they will also ask if the employer's name is written in the current work permit or not. So you can say yes. If you say no, that might be because it's an open kind of work permit given, which is very rare. That it does not happen. So most likely it will be yes in this case. It has to be a full-time job offer for at least 1 year. That's by norm, because if you say no in any of these questions, most likely you will be ineligible. Okay, so don't do that. And then, was an LMI issued for the current work permit? Because it is highly possible that an LMI could be issued for different work permit and now you're renewing it, whatnot. Ideally, I'll just select yes in this case, but this section is for the people with LMIA. If you don't have it, as I said, we'll just keep it simple for now and we'll just call it no. All right. For most of the people, more than 90% of the people, if you are in Canada or even outside Canada, getting an LMIA based job offer is very rare. So yeah, don't fall for scams, don't fall for the LMIA scams, and go with the legal routes. LMIAs are legal, but it's very hard to find the real ones. So don't do this. Most likely it'll be no. I'll go with that. The next is the work history section, in which we'll spend more time here. Okay. So in the work history section, only if you have a work history, you will be able to gain points and be eligible for express entry, because either it's a Canadian work experience or a foreign work experience. You need at least 1 year of work experience to be in the pool. A lot of people still say that, hey, the eligibility requirement for category based draws, which is the healthcare categories, the trades, and the other categories which were there before but probably not any more. There is a French category draw as well. For those categories, the minimum requirement for being in a particular occupation, okay, for that occupation is 6 months. Now they say 6 months is because they can have multiple different experiences, but for that particular experience which is eligible for the category based draw, you should have at least 6 months of experience for that particular occupation. But to be in the pool, you should have at least 1 year of cumulative work experience. For CEC, it's in Canada, cumulative 1 year of work experience, saying that yes, you are eligible within 6 months to be in the particular category based draws. But if your overall experience is not 1 year, you are still not eligible to be in the pool itself. If you are not in the pool, there is no category based draws. So make sure that you do not keep your hopes up just after 6 months of gaining some experience and saying that, hey, I might be eligible, let me create this express entry profile, and boom, I'm getting ineligible. Maybe there is something wrong. What is wrong? That's the thing which is wrong. You are not completing your 1 year of experience. okay? But still, if you have any doubt, feel free to reach out to me, okay? I'll be more than happy to help you out there. So for the work experience, as I said that you should have something, I'm going to just say that I have some experience from January, and maybe I'm going to say it's my current job. If it's not the current job, then it's going to ask for the end date, but I'm only going to put one job just for the sample. You can add more experience in your profile depending on how many years and since when you have it. Ideally, we only need experience within last 10 years, and within that, whatever you can prove. So if you cannot prove an experience for any reason, if your employer is not supporting you, if you don't have the pay stubs, if for any reason you don't have the bank statements to prove it, then please don't enter it here, because if you get points and you get an ITA with it, if you don't have documents to prove it, you will get rejected for permanent residence. So be very cautious in putting any information in the work history section. I'll just say it's my current job. Ideally, the job has to be 30 hours per week. As you can see that they are not saying that whether it's a full-time job or part-time job, but ideally the expectation is that if it's a full-time job, it has to be at least 30 hours per week. And if it's a part-time job, it has to be finishing at least 1560 hours of time to be considered as a 1 year of full-time job. Okay, so I'm just going to say the usual, which is 37.5, and I'm going to select a job role. Now the next question is working legal in Canada during this time. If you are not working legal in Canada during this time, then of course you are not eligible. So you have to select yes. Studying full-time while doing this job. Now a lot of people are confused in this part as well. I'm going to show two different experiences. The first one is in Canada, which I'm showing right now. I'm also going to do a foreign experience just to show you how these stuffs are different for in Canada and outside Canada experience. Because for people who already know this, if you are studying full-time in Canada and also doing this job does not qualify for express entry. Okay, so the ideal answer for this should be no. If you are saying yes, this might also be the reason you are not getting enough points as compared to the CRS calculation you would have done before. Okay, but coming back, what category of the job this falls under? Ideally, if you are previously a student and currently on a post-graduation work permit, it's an open work permit, so it's a work permit required, no LMIA required. If your country has a treaty with Canada and you do not require a work permit, you can select that too. And if you are on an LMIA based work permit in Canada right now, you can select work permit and LMIA required for this particular job. But for most of the cases, it's work permit required and no LMIA required, so I'm going to go ahead with that. Alright, so I'm just going to add this. The next job experience I want to add is a foreign experience for people who either never came to Canada and just utilizing their foreign experience, or people who have both Canadian and foreign work experience. Alright, and it does not really need to be the full 1 year experience. Even if you have, let's say, 4 months of experience which is paid, or 8 months, 10 months, 12 months, whatever it is, it might help. So don't ignore it. If you can prove it, please add it. Okay, so let's say I have some experience. Now here you see it is not asking me whether you were studying full-time or not, if you had any sort of work permit to work in that particular country or not, whether it was an internship or not, right? So saying that, my point here for you is that there are people who have studied their medicine courses, right? Like whether it's a dental course, whether it's nursing or physiotherapy or anything else, where you have to compulsory do, in most of the countries, at least 1 year of internship, which is paid. And technically you can utilize that paid internship as an experience here. Okay, there is nothing wrong in that, nothing illegal in that. You did some experience, you are utilizing it, and that can increase your points by a lot. If you are in any other bachelor's program right now back home and you are doing an internship, doing it for 1 year will really boost the score a lot. But even if you are doing it for few months, you can still enter it here as long as you can prove it. So whether it's an internship, whether it's any work experience, just add it. As long as it's a paid work experience you gained outside Canada, there is no harm in adding it here. But for anything in Canada, make sure if you are working part-time while doing the studies, you don't really need to add it here. If you were doing some volunteering job for which you are not getting paid, no need to add it here. For any experience you gained since you are on an implied status, if you did not get the work permit yet, but on the day you applied for the work permit and you started working with the company, from that day you can count for that particular experience. and utilize it to gain as many points as possible within Canada. So I hope that I have covered pretty much all the points around this. But if you still have any questions, please feel free to drop it down in the comments. Let me know, reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help you out. Okay, the next section is the research, for which you can choose whether you want to answer it or not. It's totally your call. I'm just going to say no because it really does not matter. It's for IRCC. All right, and we'll just save and exit this thing. And as you can see, we have completed the entire thing. I have provided all the details. I don't know, I may have chose something or some options which are not appropriate for eligibility while explaining, but as you know, my explanations are all correct. Okay, and I'm just trying to explain by giving different scenarios. So don't literally just mute this video and follow the screen. See what I'm talking about, because I'm trying to explain various different scenarios here for people who came to Canada as a student, people who came to Canada with their spouses, people who are outside Canada, people who have in Canadian or outside Canadian experiences. I'm talking about everything. Okay, so don't try to skip the video and watch the entire thing. This is pretty much it. I'm completing this. Let's continue. Okay, and I'll just sign and declare, and we'll provide the name, and then we'll finally transmit this. So as you can see, congratulations, you have successfully submitted the application. Now I'll exit the questionnaire and we'll go into the main screen once again. As you can see, my application is updated and there is a new message, so we'll go into that. Here it says that I meet the eligibility criteria. One thing to note here is that this UCI number you get in this section is a temporary UCI number. They haven't linked your UCI yet because there is no human who have processed your application at this point of time. So don't worry thinking that, hey, my UCI is not linked, what should I do? It will be linked only after you get an ITA, you submit your application, and an immigration officer attaches your application with your actual UCI. Okay, so don't worry about it. Your profile number is created, but as I said, that if something goes wrong and you want to recreate the profile, don't try to use it and saying that you already created the profile. This will only be helpful if you get an ITA, or if you already crossed that 1 year and your profile became ineligible, you're redoing it. Otherwise, this is really not needed. As you can see, it has a 1 year of profile expiry, which is great. And I'm meeting the Canadian experience class, but I'm not meeting anything else, probably because I did not show the 1 year of complete continuous experience for foreign skill or foreign experience. Otherwise, I would have been getting that as well. For provincial nomination, you will be not met in literally all the cases until you get a provincial nomination and accept it on this page. Okay, only then this will become met. Until then, even if let's say Ontario, Nova Scotia, British Columbia, anyone's inviting you, you don't get the met immediately. You only get it once they approve your nomination. Okay, so that's pretty much it. So I hope that this video was helpful to you. I tried to cover as many questions as possible by looking at all the comments. Probably it was 1,000+ comments from my last video. So I hope that this video helps to a lot of people who are confused and trying to create their profile and don't know what went wrong. This video might serve the purpose. Thanks for watching the video. Please let me know if you have any other questions and I'll be happy to help you out. So that's everything for now. Thank you for watching and I will see you in the next one.